Hey, thank you for checking out the Anodized Chef. Today's episode, we are going to do a Mediterranean chicken and wild mushroom skillet all in one pot, and we're going to serve it with brown rice on the side. Stay with us. So we're going to get started. We're going to get right into it. What we're going to do is we're going to take some grocery store bought chicken breast, and we're just going to clean it up just a little bit. And I wanted to take the time to do this so you can see that I'm taking it right out of the package and I'm going to work with it like right away. Just basically we're going to clean it up and trim. I trimmed off that little fat nub, and then there's a tendon right in here where the chicken tender used to be connected. And we're going to trim that out of there because that gets a little bit tough too. And then any extra fat that's around, you can go ahead and take that off of there too and trim it. So we've got a nice clean breast right there, and I'll show you what I'm going to do with that in a second, but I'll just do another one of these real quick just so you can see what I did. I'm going to trim that extra fat nub off right there and get right in there where the connective tissue was on that chicken tender, and just make sure there's no breast cartilage, because a lot of times right in the middle where the breastbone is connected, there's a little piece of cartilage in there. You want to make sure that's cleaned off as well. So now that we've got a couple of clean breasts, then what we're going to do is now I'm just going to butterfly them, because what we're going to do is we're going to sear them in a pan and finish them that way. We want to have them so they're thin enough. Now you can always pound them down if you want to, but we want to have them thin enough so when we work with them in the pan, they'll cook at the right amount of time. So we're just going to go ahead and butterfly them. And what I mean by that, very carefully with a knife, is we're going to take them and just go right down the length of the chicken breast, right down the middle of it, and then split it into two pieces. And I'll do it again for you so you can see that. And really, this is just saving us from having to go ahead and lay the whole board out with plastic and pound them all down. And we just kind of want to have them uniform in thickness and pretty uniform in size too. Okay, so coming back in, we're going to take this, we've got two saute pans going here. We're going to do two at a time. That way there we can kind of do little batches. But I've got two basic saute pans heating up. We're going to add a little bit of olive oil to them, probably about a teaspoon in each pan. And while that oil is heating up, we'll talk a little bit about my palette here. I've got an artist palette going on here. And on this palette, what I've got is I've got some oregano, I've got some coriander ground, I've got some ground cinnamon, some ground cumin, and I've got some of the edge. There's about 2 teaspoons of each item on here, and we're just going to dump them into a bowl, and that's going to be basically our Mediterranean seasonings that are going to go into this dish. So we're going to make sure everything gets in there, give it a good stir, and I got some on the table here, but that's okay. We'll give this a good mix, and it's basically going to be our coating for the chicken that's going into the pan. That oil is good and hot now, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to give this chicken a nice little dusting. Pat it in with your fingers. Try to get both sides. Now the thing about this rub that we made is where you're dipping your fingers in it and you're dipping it on the chicken, you can't, you won't be able to use this again after, because you've got raw chicken on your fingers, and the last thing you want to do is cross-contaminate. So you want to be real careful about that. This is really, this is one and done, so don't make a ton if you don't have to, if you're only cooking for a few people. You want to keep it down to just maybe a teaspoon of each. So while I put a sear on this chicken, I'm going to talk a little bit about the music that you're hearing right now. They're new friends of ours. The band is called Never Even. The track is Remainder, and it's off of their EP, The Progress of Disaster. Now you can check them out on their Facebook fan page or visit them at neverevenmusic.com. All right, so we've got these searing now, and these got a pretty good, these are pretty good markings on these. So we're going to go ahead and flip them over. And we want to make sure we're giving them a good, make sure they're going to be cooked throughout. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to add about 1/4 of an onion to each side. And don't worry about not being able to see that too well on camera, because we're getting another angle on it. We're going to add probably about a teaspoon of garlic on each side. Oh, this is going to be out of control. My favorite kind of mushroom, we're going to do cremini mushrooms. Now, I don't know if you'd really get cremini mushrooms in the Mediterranean, but they sure are tasty, so they're going to work okay in this dish. And I added a very healthy amount, probably about 1/4 to 1/2 cup on each side. And I also added some green onions I'm going to add right now. A good handful, probably about 1/4 cup on each side. And I also added some green onions I'm going to add right now. A good handful, probably about 1/4 cup on each side. And we're gonna let those veggies saute down a little bit. And then with the rest of the spice that we mix up, take a pinch and just kind of sprinkle it over the top. And what that's going to do is that's going to kind of bring the essence out a little bit. You don't want to lose that flavor. You want to keep that flavor profile together. Because if we went and just dumped our chicken stock on it, what would end up happening is you'd kind of lose a little bit of that. You want to kind of keep that influence in there so it's really bold and strong flavored. All right, so we've got these flipped. We've got all of our vegetables starting to saute down. Now I've got a little bit of chicken stock here. Now you can use bouillon. You can use a prepackaged your favorite flavor of chicken stock, a favorite brand. But what we're going to do is we're going to use a chicken base and dilute it with water. And you got to be careful because that type of thing has a lot of sodium in it. So you want to be careful not to add too much salt to the dish. And really what we want to try to do is we just want to let this cook down. We want to get that chicken cooked in that stock, and it's actually going to make a sauce out of it. Now with all the sauteed veggies and the garlic and the spices, I can smell it already. It's crazy. So we'll saute this down and let this chicken stock cook down a little bit, and it'll turn into a sauce. All right, so now our stock is really starting to simmer now, and it's starting to come down. So we're going to add some finishing touches to it. I've got some fresh chopped parsley. And what Mediterranean dish will be complete without some fresh chopped parsley? Not a one. And I've got some fresh green onions, and I wanted to add those closer to the end so they had a little bit of the fresh crispness to them, and that's kind of important to me because I'm a big fan of green onion, and I'd rather not have them soggy and kind of broken down. They'll add a nice fresh garden bite to this dish. We're good there, and then I'm just going to add a final pinch of the edge, and just be careful when you add the salt to this, only because you've already added it in the original seasoning, and the chicken stock has a salt content, so just be careful. You want to maybe give that sauce a taste first, so you're not adding too much salt. And then our final ingredient, which is also pretty salty, which is why you want to be careful, is some feta cheese. And we're just going to crumble, shake some of the crumbles right into that saute dish and let it melt a little bit. And that'll be part of our presentation. I'm going to check the chicken real quick. I just want to make sure it's good and cooked, and yep, it sure is. So we're good. Now we just want this sauce to kind of finish up, and the great thing about it is the feta cheese is going to melt down in that sauce. It's also going to help to thicken it a little bit. So I'm going to take some of this brown and wild rice that we went ahead and prepared, and we're going to put this on the bottom of the show plate, and that's what we're going to serve our Mediterranean chicken on. I figure nice brown rice is a good whole grain, got a lot of nutrients, a lot of health. The wild rice, same idea. So go ahead and put that right on the show plate, and then we'll go ahead and we'll take our chicken and do the same thing. Got two beautifully sexy pieces of chicken breast cooked here with some wild mushrooms and some feta cheese, some onions and some spices. Oh man, the smells in this kitchen are out of control right now. We'll just drizzle some of that stock on there. Oh, wow, look at that. Holy smokes, you'd get that at a nice fancy restaurant, pretty sure. All right, so now let's talk about the wine. So the wine that we chose for today's episode is Griffiths. It's a 2011 Sauvignon Blanc, and one of the things that we really notice about it right on the nose is the green apple. It comes right through, and it's really kind of a drier white, and it craves salt. One of the things I noticed too is it really wants to draw that salt from the dish, which makes it a nice accompaniment with this. So that being said, we want to thank you for joining us in our magic, our madness, and our mayhem. We'll see you next time.
There's another me, a shot in the dark. Why don't you love it today?